Hey, folks. Very excited to have everyone here for the closing act for the day. By way of introduction, my name is Jane Day. I'm the Key Account Director for Major League Baseball. So, by way of that, I am a huge sports fan. So, I'm very, very excited to be getting into a little bit more about our relationship and partnership with NBC Universal and what we're doing in the live sports analytics with AI space. I mean, because I wouldn't be a Googler if I didn't mention AI, and it's what we're all here and what it's all about. But to help get into the weeds of it all, I'm joined by the team that brought that to life. So Brian Crook from Google and Darryl Jefferson from NBC Universal. So I might just start with letting you introduce yourself and what you do.
Sure. Great to meet you all. I'm Brian Crook. I lead Google's it's AI go-to-market on my title, but basically our forward deployed engineering team. We're about 200 strong globally and about 120 here in the US. And basically our charter is to work with marquee brands like NBC and bring AI innovation to market. Bleeding edge, the better from our perspective. So, really driving kind of cutting edge things, including techniques around physical AI, which this fits the bill. So great to meet y'all.
Awesome. And Darryl.
Hi, my name is Darryl Jefferson. I'm the SVP of Engineering and Technology for NBC Sports. What that means is I oversee all the technical aspects of the production side of the Olympic effort. So everything from power, cameras, transmission, audio, you name it. If it's technical, I oversee it. And that effort requires not just me, obviously, but it's hundreds and hundreds of people in lots of locations to bring that all to life. I also, I guess informally, part of the job is trying to make the production vision come true technically. So I'm a dream maker in some ways. So that's the exciting and fun part of the gig. So that's my thing.
Wonderful. I'd like to be a dream maker. Probably not. Ask my parents, more of a nightmare creator, but sure. All right. But Darryl, we will start with you. So can you describe a little bit more around the NBC and Google Cloud's partnership? I mean, and the latest project. So what exactly did NBC and Google Cloud do?
So we were really excited to get together with Google AI to try to get more explanation going for a Winter Games. The hard part is we're presenting a lot of sports that much of America doesn't pay attention to, but every 4 years. So some sports that are a bit tougher to grasp what you're looking at or why it's remarkable. The task is really how can we demonstrate, how can we explain a little better? And Google, who had been working with Team USA previously to use some of the AI in training mechanisms, we realized, like, wait a minute, you're gathering this information for the athletes to help them kind of train and make themselves better. What better a partnership than to take some of that data and visualize it to help explain the Winter Games, and that's what we did.
That is so cool. I do remember seeing that in the wild, if you will. But I do want to contest one point. I am an avid curling fan all the time.
Yeah.
And I think we all watched that. Oh, sorry. But no, that it is very cool. And I was very excited to see the partnership come to life. But yeah, with you again, Darryl.
Yep.
You have a long history of Olympic innovation, and this work with Google and Team USA really complements that. So, from your perspective, how did the specific capabilities of Google Cloud's AI models, like the low latency skeletal tracking, become the raw material for your broadcast strategy for those competitions?
Yeah, for a lot of the measurement and kind of explanation for these winter sports, you need things like instrumented cameras, or you need to kind of lay out everything you want to do to kind of tell the story. If you want to demonstrate amplitude, you need to kind of figure out, okay, when are people going to fly up the half pipe and point a camera in that direction, et cetera. With this interaction, a lot of that was done with computer vision. So you could basically point the camera or use an ISO camera that was already there to get the information you need to explain what you were looking at. So it really helped that we could kind of use existing footage, even archival footage, and then overlay some of the demonstrated acts, if you will.
Awesome. And for those of you who might not be as familiar, we are definitely talking about the freestyle skiing and snowboarding. Predominantly half pipe, or it was
Yeah, it was half pipe and big air. And there you could do things like height, distance, rotational velocity, body compression, these types of things that really help. Like, why is this athlete killing it, and why is this athlete just slightly less killing it? So
being killed
yes,
in.
exactly right. Exactly right.
Got it. Okay, so actually, Brian, over to you on this one. So the cork ribbon and skeletal overlays have changed how we watch freestyle sports. But how did AI allow NBC to narrate the physics of the trick in real time, rather than just describing the emotion of the moment, so to speak?
So the cork ribbon definitely is a cool visualization. But what's even more interesting is the data that underlies that. And if you think about it just from the perspective of the viewer and also the athlete, it's the first time that a viewer has actually been able to see like a full rotational, axis across all of the different kind of elements of the trick. Um, Underneath that, there's real innovation. So, like Darryl just said, historically, you had to use motion capture, sensors, a camera array to get this kind of data, and it generally required a controlled environment and took time, right? Time and compute to ultimately build out that spatial view. And what we did here that was really novel is that we took 2D broadcast video and we basically interpolated and got a 3D skeletal data cloud associated to that. And then process that using a multimodal Gemini, a multimodal model to get additional like foundational reasoning against that. So, biomechanical data, like Darryl just mentioned, some of the velocity and amplitude and other things could be derived from that data set. So it's definitely a novel technique, and ultimately is a much more scalable approach, just because there's two-dimensional broadcast video everywhere that you can leverage for this. And I think the interesting part is not necessarily, as Darryl mentioned, just trying to, although you automated a lot of the capture of it, there's still a human in the loop component. So there was a feedback loop here, and a lot of the assets that we brought together, of course, were used by the production team to augment the video and also the narrative associated to it.
Very cool. And something you mentioned from the jump that, the more trailblazing the project, more better is how I interpreted that. So imagine that a number of these things weren't exactly off the shelf. So maybe you could speak to a little bit of the work the Google Cloud team did to bring this to life. And of course, them working with Darryl's team to bring it to broadcast, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. So although some of it was off the shelf, like some of the multimodal reasoning, the core skeletal like 3D derivation was actually a DeepMind model that looked at pose, ultimately more of a physical representation of the two-dimensional image, and then derived again that data set. So the rough flow of data was, as Darryl mentioned, the cameras would cut certain angles and certain elements and feed to Google, not the whole feed, but the elements that were going to be most relevant for a given broadcast clip. And then we would take that data and we isolated the athlete, ultimately cleaned up the background, and then fed this data into this new model running in Vertex. Google Vertex is a AI platform. Took that data cloud out and then put it into a multimodal model to ultimately get the mechanics of that 3D data cloud, the skeletal representation, and then also ultimately some of the generative elements, including the cork ribbon. All of that, as I mentioned, was packaged up and then sent back, and so there was a flow there to really allow the broadcasters to leverage that data set, decide what to do, what not to do, derive kind of historical context. When was this trick actually invented? Who was it invented by? So there's a lot more kind of world context than just the 2 to 3D derivation.
Got you on that. So also keen to understand maybe that relay race of data more from a as we are at a broadcasting show, but from that broadcast standpoint. So how does it get from the camera at a snowy slope in Italy, which I was very sad not to be personally there, but hey, whatever, next time. But from that slope in Italy to Google Cloud and then onto the screen for fans. I'm very interested to know what that looks like.
Yeah, and a lot of the data points, as Brian mentioned, we'd feed the clips to the team, the Google team. The analysis would be done, and then there'd be a conversation about what elements to use in context of the show that we're trying to put together. To your point about relay race, these are parallel processes. So we're cutting some of the daytime footage and into the primetime show and having an active conversation about how to use these elements and how does it further explanation. We talk a lot about what we call relatable awe. That the cork ribbon is something visually that you don't have to explain that much because it's visually kind of doing what it does, right? You're seeing like, oh, she goes around a bunch of times, or this type of thing. So discussing where that landed in the broadcast was the work of the production team and the kind of partnership between the two teams.
Very, very, very cool. And so then looking at the entire chain from the code in the model to the fan on their couch, yours truly, what is the one redefining moment from this partnership that you believe has changed the standard or raised the bar for sports broadcasting?
I think anytime that we can visualize something anew, right? Bring something to life, explain in a new way, it offers a brand new context, right? And that you can kind of, my mother is 90. If I would try to describe to her what I'm sure I'll get it wrong, the trick that Chloe Kim was doing, if I tried to describe that to her, it would be nearly impossible. But just visualizing the cork ribbon, there's no explanation needed. You've actively brought this thing to life in a kind of visual way, and that's the joy, and that's the kind of excitement about it, and that this partnership yielded that result. It's exciting to imagine where else we could use this type of thing. How can we imagine bigger moving forward?
So good. I love the phrase relatable awe. Was that it? That's awesome. Is that kind of I don't want to say a team motto, but
I was going to say that's 1000% Molly Solomon. She's the executive producer of the Olympics, and it's kind of core to how we bring the Olympics into the home to try to explain these remarkable feats from the athletes.
That is very cool. I'd imagine maybe question for both of you. It's applicable to other sports, not just Winter Olympics, but I mean, I imagine diving maybe for the summer. I'm just throwing some ideas out there. Also coaching. Maybe that's also just maybe a slight pivot for the work that we were doing, that Google Cloud was doing with the US Olympic team, because this started as a training exercise, right? Can you speak a little bit about that partnership slightly, and then and maybe the coaching aspect to it? I'm just curious to understand if you know much about that, Brian.
Not the partnership piece, but I can talk a little bit about the coaching element. So, back to the cork ribbon. Again, great marketing, and I think to your point, is very relatable. But the science underneath that is actually quite legitimate. If you think about the nuance of an athlete mastering their skills. So the little bit that gets someone on the podium, there's some great videos that Shaun White talks a little bit about, just going back and using this technology to analyze some of his, most famous runs. We found that he actually cheats physics a little bit. So he rotates in a way where he basically, eliminate certain degrees and it looks like it's a full rotation. But the fact that he's able to, rotate a little bit off axis and kind of nuanced in a way means that he rotates faster. And with his amplitude, he's able to get more spins out of it. And so I think, the the thing that's interesting about this, as Darryl said, is historically to do this in a coaching context, you need a clean room, you need a closed environment, you need to invest, in a camera array or in some sort of sensor, you know, um, kind of biomechanical sensor on the body to get this data. And that's expensive. That takes a long time. And of course, for the elite athletes, they do this all the time. But what this really represents is that you can turn any two-dimensional. Eventually, you'll be able to turn any two-dimensional data video feed into a biomechanical data feed, which means it's always on and significantly less expensive than setting up these environments. So I think what it does represent is it's a commoditization of this data set that really lets the athlete and the coach understand the nuance of why a particular athlete, ends up on the podium. And it's both, efficiency, let's say, in the tricks that they do, and also the style. And both of those, you can really get a sense of, using the skeletal cloud and understanding, kind of the trail. And to your point, that trail actually does give you a very unique signature per athlete.
If I may, also at the end of the day, the difference between gold, silver, and bronze is incredibly fractional, right? And for the athlete to understand, where can I pick up just a little more rotation? Where can I pick up a little more speed? What did the winner have on me, so to speak, in terms of advantage or execution? And when you're able to kind of analyze your competition, analyze your own performance with that depth in mind, you can really change your performance. And as a result, we can also help describe your performance and tell people why this person's performance differentiated them from another performance. It's helping to describe in both directions.
Gotcha. I mean, we do all love becoming armchair experts over the Olympics. Yes.
Especially in curling.
Absolutely, literally only in curling. I digress. But look, the games may have come to an end, but certainly the conversation does not. So where or what does this partnership, I guess, signal for the future of how viewers may consume live sports?
I think looking ahead, I think the natural thought is to just imagine how we can use technology to tell this story, and where is it best used, and also how can we help the athletes, right? With perform and specifically, I'd like to help the home team, but I suppose they could help other athletes too. But how it could do that, and how we can bring these things to life, and also just partnering the two companies. How can we tell better stories together? And looking ahead, that's part of the exciting part.
Well, we're certainly excited about the partnership. But Brian, any uh, thoughts from you as to where live sports and AI you anticipate to see it going?
I mean, one of the things that I find fascinating about this tech, it actually it sits in the spectrum of physical AI, which includes spatial reasoning. It includes world reasoning, and there's a lot of really interesting innovation and research in this particular market, all the way from these kinds of vision analytics use cases, all the way to robotics use cases. Vision is a huge part of what makes a successful robotics scenario. These models not only can derive data, but they can also, generate interesting data. And so one of the things that I think is interesting is these feeds become always on, data sets, is that you're going to be able to build volumetric databases, if you will, of these live events. And, your camera angles aren't going to be fixed anymore. You'll be able to, reason across 6 degrees of freedom, and, ultimately give the viewer a lot more control into the broadcast to potentially, look at the game from the referee's perspective, look at it from another team member's perspective, look at it from the, a fan on the 50-yard line. All of that kind of stuff is going to come pretty quickly. And I think there's some interesting convergence conversations into broadcast, generally, because it effectively gives you a digital twin, which means you can start to think beyond just the live event, and, it starts to overlap into the gaming market and a whole bunch of other, use cases once you have this like always on capability. we're not there yet. It's going to take some time. But just in terms of the broadcast itself, I think we're going to see very quickly a move out of like flat two-dimensional broadcast and into a more, not necessarily real time, but the ability to go back. And to your point about the data set, I mean, when people have access to, the force of a tackle or the specific rotational element of, a cork, they're going to want that data the same way they want box scores. So all of these data sets are going to be interesting, for the fans and can be reconstituted into new use cases.
Yeah, absolutely. Exciting times. As you said, we're not there yet, but soon, maybe.
Soon.
Potentially.
Happening fast.
Yeah, it certainly is. But folks, I like to open up for anyone who has questions live because we have a few minutes.
I'm going to ask you just from the perspective of the broadcaster, right? Like, obviously, it's not real time; it's just in time, so to speak. But what were the latencies from your perspective?
And it's hard to say because our target wasn't second replay or even third replay. It was the distance from live competition, and then we're trying to hit our primetime show. So we had more time than you'd naturally have. We had the benefit of being, thousands of miles away. So that turnaround was different. If we had a different target, I think we could have gotten much tighter for what we presented, but top to tail, it's hard to say because that was our target. Yeah, I'd say the distance from competition to primetime.
In minutes, I think was the round trip. What was the average? Would you say SLA was like under 10, but it was? Do you remember a month? 30 minutes was like the outside. Yeah, and all the reasoning was done in the cloud. We could have traded off with local reasoning as well, edge reasoning, but did not.
Gotcha. Super helpful. Sorry, another hand. Yes. Gentleman in the blue shirt.
Thank you. I just had a quick question on, you mentioned that you only need one camera to kind of capture this information, no sensors or anything on the athlete. In the future, is this something where just a video shot on an iPhone could be fed into the model and then given this kind of biometric data? And
Yeah.
The reason I ask is I could see this being huge for young athletes and people who don't have access to this high-tech technology. Now their coaches can walk them through the biomechanical data as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the higher the resolution, the better, right? In the data, but it translates to high school sports, and we've shown it in other aspects as well, not just in snow sports. At that point, you can probably talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, we can talk about it in some other sports and some of the other partnerships we're doing. I'm seeing some folks here from MLB, but this is not a session about that. But if anyone would like to chat to them after, sure. Yes, sir.
Hi, Mark Gerberman with Arcturus Sports. Brian, thanks for my sales pitch. We do volumetric video, and we're friends with the MLB folks over there as well. What do you feel are the biggest barriers right now for this technology to really take off?
What aspect? Live broadcast in particular?
Live is fairly known with the latency, but beyond that, the technology side, like where could Google come in and help with some of those problems that are there?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot of research just around multi-object detection and kind of take the robotic side. It's definitely not a solved problem, at this point. Obviously, there are a lot of people that are, making moves in the market, and certainly there are good examples of, where robotics and vision in particular are being leveraged, but it's not like ubiquitous. And it requires a bit of a clean room scenario. That's why there's a lot of robotics in manufacturing today where you have controlled predictive environments. Agriculture would probably be the other end of the spectrum where it's really messy and dirty and you don't have network and it's hard to get reasoning to the edge and things like that. So, it's going to take time, but all aspects of reasoning need to improve. So world reasoning, and I feel like we've done a pretty good job with that. We have Genie, if you've seen that for, generating worlds, and that's really important to generate synthetic data so that you can ultimately train. So a lot of that is kind of this conversation as well as how do you get the training data sets to, ultimately inference appropriately.
Yes, gentleman at the front.
My question is how you handle accuracy for this model, because I'm a broadcast director, but I self-research how AI works for myself, and I understand it's like they never have like 100% accuracy. I heard you talking about like having different models, so I believe there's a couple of specialists that's like work and like it's just like make it more accurate data, but maybe you do some contrasting and how you reach at least closer to this, like so you make sure that's like every broadcast you have like really good outcome, maybe adding more cameras. Sometimes I understand like more quality of data and stuff.
A lot of hill climbing, a lot of evaluation, a lot of synthetic data, and we also use athlete data to fine tune, so a lot of tuning to make it work, which is why it's not perfectly abstracted into kind of an open world context yet.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, folks? No. Wonderful. Well, I believe we're probably the last, I don't want to say barrier, but between you and probably the many happy hours that are going on. So thank you all so much. We will be around for another few minutes if you want to come and chat with us. But if not, thank you so much and enjoy the show.